Morena e hos. Ko Urban Ungulate. Apologies, I wrote this a couple of months ago for a Trans-Tasman thing, so I haven't really looked at it, but so there's a lot of detail you always know. This is about our peri-urban deer control program and the tools and technologies that we've sort of adapted over time. And I've done a bit of a deep dive into the data to look at the cost-benefit analysis of various techniques. As you'll see, it is the Western Hutt Hills. We all know what deer do, they're bad. But Hutt City sort of touched base with us a couple of years ago. They were having a lot of complaints. We were getting a lot of complaints, a lot of ecological impacts, and safety concerns. There was a lot of media coverage after COVID, deer in people's backyards and poaching and whatnot. So the project was, it's called the Eastern Hills. It's 2,000 hectares of sort of regen, low scrub, little bit of manuka, gorse gullies, and some beech forest, but it's a patchwork of public land, private land, bit of everything. So we've got some dock covenants in there, big sections that you sort of can't go through. It's heavily tracked, so it's used by a lot of people. There's mountain bike tracks, there's walking tracks, there's the power line access road. So lots of people use it day in, day out. So we started in 2019. It's funded by Hutt City Council, thank you very much. And there's this little bit of funding that comes from Greater Wellington to support the Key Native Ecosystem program, which is just in here. The primary target's red deer, but we'll opportunistically shoot pigs, goats, and fallow deer. At the moment, fallow deer haven't been shot in there, but they are right here in the Whiteman's Valley area. Budget started out 16k, it's slowly, progressively growing, and it's sitting at about 30k a year now. Is it urban? For my Australian talk, they were talking about these parks that were, semi-rural, but when you start talking about shooting deer in people's backyards, this is getting pretty urban for most control programs. So we started off with the traditional methods. We contracted out sort of 2/3 or maybe even 3/4 of the work, primarily day indicated dog hunting. It's the traditional method we all know and love. But on average in this environment, we were sort of achieving about 1 animal per day. We supplemented that with a little bit of in-house night shooting, and early days we had sort of very basic technologies, but we had a pretty high return. I think it was just because the deer were naive and there was large mobs present, but they soon learned to avoid those open areas a little bit. They move around and they don't stick around when you start firing the first shot. So over the years, both internally and externally, the contractors and GW staff have adapted, really made the most of thermal scopes, thermal handhelds. We've really embraced the thermal helmet. We find being hands-free and just present all the time, you're getting really reactive target acquisition, and you can get to shooting quite quickly. Also allows you to carry a stick for stabilization. You don't need to freehand your shots, and keep it pretty simple. Just a manuka pole will do. Some sites you can use electric motorbikes and gives you a bit more mobility, get around, whatnot. And primarily, I think the contractor's using 223s. We're using mostly suppressed 300 blackout. It's a big bullet, small case, has a lot of knockdown power, so animals less likely to get away. Images of deer and thermal. So that's looking into a cemetery. There's actually no deer out, but that's sort of 500-600 meters across to that far boundary, and if there were deer out there, we'd easily see them. A deer standing in somebody's driveway, that's with the thermal head-mounted camera, so it's not super high resolution, but it's yeah, like I say, it's not zoomed, so you can see what's right in front of you. Just more photos of deer and thermal scopes and deer by people's houses and whatnot. The other one was thermal drones. So I wanted to talk about the three ways we and the contractors are using drones. So there's a drone-directed hunter, requires a shooter and a drone pilot and a radio communication between them, and they'll try and walk the shooter in on the animal. Drone-pushed animals is more like you put a shooter on a ridge or in an area where they're with some open cover in front of them, and then use the drone to try and spook them, get them up out of a gully or come around a face and get them in front of the shooter. And then just a shooter pilot. Shooter arrives on site, throws the drone up, has a look around, finds deer, makes a plan, puts the drone away, goes in and shoots them. They both have their pros and cons, but I mean both the two staff methods obviously higher input for the number of deer, so you need to shoot more deer to stay as effective or as efficient as the shooter pilot. Deer obviously don't always go where you want them to. Can be a bit time consuming. Another technology we've implemented is 4G remote cameras. So they're a camera with a SIM card, sends photos to phones, and then a hunter can respond. We've found that if the hunter can get there in less than 30 minutes, they've got about a 90-95% chance of at least encountering that deer. Whether they get a shot on it or not is a different story, but in my experience, it's 80% of the time if I'm responding to a deer, we're shooting that deer or number of deer. And yeah, there's no shortage of them turning up on people's private little backyards. There's obviously additional administrative requirements, turning up, doing site inspections, meeting with landowners, signing them up to the approval of you turning up at any time. But yeah, we're trying to build a better system for mapping those properties. For the first 4 years, I just broke it down it's a pretty full-on table, but I broke it down into the two methods, the day hunting and night shooting using a variety of methods. These are sort of the stepwise methods as they were implemented over time. But you'll see night shooting initially, the return on investment really high, sort of 3.5, 5, 4 deer per day equivalent. So a night is 6 hours at time and a half, but a day is 8 hours. So, we're sort of 8 or 9 hours equivalent. And so we sort of we're tracking around that sort of 50, 60 odd deer a year for the similar amount of input. But you'll see it does start to go down. Its efficiency is reducing, whereas that day hunting sort of sticks around that one day animal per day. Even more messy table, but indicating dog day hunting, sort of now it's tracking down below one animal per day. Contractors are starting to use the drone in the day a little bit. They'll put it up first thing in the morning, find animals that they can then go and target throughout the day or that early that morning. So it's really hard to break out how much effort they're putting into each method, but I've done my best assumption. And then, yes, they're still using drone-assisted night shooting. And I haven't broken it down into the three different methods because, I just don't know. Our camera response work, we haven't put a whole lot of time into it. When I say not a lot of time, 6.5 day equivalent, that's probably 20 visits. Well, yeah, probably 20, maybe over 20 visits to properties. So when you're responding, you're only spending an hour and a half, 2 hours to respond, and you generally get a deer or two. So it's still quite a cost-effective method at this stage. So over the 6 years, we've shot just under 350 deer. Our new data system, if you sat in on Debbie's talk, we're capturing it with quick capture, and it's going directly to our ArcGIS system, track logs and kill waypoints. And you'll see there's lots of dots around the edges, but there are still quite a few dots in the middle. And thanks to our contractors, they're putting in a lot of effort to go and do those. We've been doing some monitoring. We started out with photo points. We've skipped them for a a year, but we're going to bring them back this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing what the results are this year. There's a tier 1 monitoring site in the operational area. It's this one down here. So our terrestrial monitoring team have a full suite of all of the data, but the interesting result for me was that the ungulate detection over the 2 5-year sampling periods has actually increased by 15%. But we monitor public complaints in the area, and I would say anecdotally they've definitely gone down. Some challenges and opportunities. Private lands, the WAC Act. We have a lot of properties up in the top of Whiteman's Valley that just won't give us any access. They either like the deer, they want to shoot the deer themselves. That's our problem. That's our problem child, is this sort of back area, just because we can't get in there and doing much night shooting. And you can walk along the boundary and you can hear deer roaring or running around down across the boundary, but you just can't go there. The on-call work's it's quite demanding on staff. They have to be available to respond to cameras at sort of all hours, have your phone on loud, and then there's a stand-down requirement if you've been working nights. Lots of site inspections, camera management, training, paperwork. The usual stuff. Funding, I've chucked it in there. It's like, is what we're putting into it enough to get on top of the population, or are we literally just holding it at a status quo? Hut City's released a form on their website where members of the public can just click a button and report deer sightings, kind of like the report wallaby process, and that's a good lead development tool, but it comes with its challenges as well. People false reporting or just sending through rubbish. Hut City Council are looking at building a wall. So yeah, chuck a fence up there and down there. So there's a 4-wheel drive track that runs the whole way across there. So technically relatively easy to put a fence in, but with Chris's sort of look at new fencing technology, why don't we make it shorter and just go straight down there in the bush without cutting any trees down? We may even look at aerial shooting. Australia is using aerial shooting in urban, peri-urban environments. It does require a lot of security guards on ends of tracks and that sort of thing, but other than that, sweet as. The donated meat debate continues, and we've had a few issues with that in the more recent times, with meat that we have donated ending up in local creeks and then us getting blamed for it. And in Australia they had the exact same thing when they did a lot of notification saying when they were going to do their night shooting, and then locals would go and dump deer carcasses in the parks and blame the operators for leaving deer behind. So not sure if this is actually going to play. Just a thermal video of a stag just up behind the Taita Cemetery. And I was actually able to go up and sneak up in the bush and get that guy. Any questions? That's it for me. Yo.
Were you able to work out some population density in that area before you started the operation?
No. I don't know of any really good technique other than, maybe surveying. But when we started, there wasn't the surveying technology that we might use now. Like, we could possibly fly the full boundary with a drone and just count deer. But I don't know. We didn't do it beforehand. Yeah.
For drone work, what height are you working from, and have they got wires to them?
What height are we working from? Only 120 metres, because that's what the requirement is. No, so under CAA 101 certification, you have to be shielded. So you have to have a barrier between you and any airport. So you can't fly any higher than that, and you've got a max height ceiling as well. But under 102, you can fly a bit differently. You can fly out of line of sight. So we don't, but the contractors do have 102 certification. In other environments where we've been hunting the same place over and over and over and using deer, we find that deer are picking the drone up even at 120 metres and 400 or 500 metres offset. So we're having to look in from a long way away, and if they hear the drone, they're just on the go. But in the bush, I think they kind of feel a little bit more secure. They don't just run off, they just mooch around. You can get a little bit closer. Any other questions? Yo.
With the fence,
Yo.
could you just explain how the fence is going to help with the control, given its configuration, where the deer coming from, going to, and how you're going to make it better with the fence?
I suppose if I go back to this, right back at the start. So this is our land, East Harbour Regional Park, and we keep it at relatively low deer densities. We did a DNA survey in there in the early 2020s, estimated 50 individuals based on DNA. So the deer, there's not lots of deer coming from the south. Obviously, urban deer aren't going to really migrate through there, so they're coming from the Hutt water catchment, the Wainuiomata water catchment area, and mostly this private land. This Moores Valley is just lousy with deer, and Whiteman's Valley's the same. So that fence would sort of go up here. It would give us a peninsula to work against. Plus we've got the Wainui Hill Road, a leaky barrier, but a barrier that they're less likely to cross over. So it would give us something to work against, and we would then could focus our primary control in this area for the next couple of years, suppress them down to virtually low levels, and then we can sort of start focusing on other areas. I guess I would say if we could get some movement on the WAC Act to get some push, like some work with these landowners, then that would make a huge benefit. One more question?
With your landowner engagement and management along the law boundaries,
yep.
Are you able to shoot for private land, and how do you manage that if you actually get on for the grant?
So yes, we have, I think we've got 50 or 55 private property access agreements, whether they are routine visits or camera sites. We map them. So alongside our operational boundary, there's more boundaries which are color-coded green, orange, and red. And so we've got some that have said, "Don't you dare come on my property, I'll bloody shoot you," or whatever. And so we code them out red and don't, by Jesus, go over that boundary. We've got some oranges which are, I spoke to so and so, he might be open to it. And then the greens are, yeah, we've got good to go, and we can click. We're developing it so that we can click on it on the map, and it gives you their name, contact details. And the operator will be able to be like, "Oh yeah, deer's in there, look on the map, oh that's Joe Blogs, I can flick him a text and say, hey, I'm coming on," or yeah, either during the day, and it'll tell you what he's pre-approved you to do, whether you're allowed to use a drone, whether you can shoot deer or not. And there'll be notes like, yep, wants a text before you come on, would like the deer left behind, gut it for him, blah blah blah. Cool. Roger, everybody, on to the next one.